Hey guys, thanks for joining. So I had a request for someone who was having trouble shifting their front derailleur up from the smallest ring up to the biggest or middle, one of those ones. So going upward was a problem. Going down, not so much. So a couple problems that could happen. We could have too much slack in our cable that's not allowing the derailleur to grab what it needs and pull that derailleur all the way over. And the other issue we can have is someone may have touched the limit screw, probably the high limit screw. Screwing it in righty-tighty all the way could stop that derailleur cage from wanting to move upward, advancing that chain from the smallest ring up to the next biggest, middle, or the largest. So we're going to check out and see what that looks like and how to fix it. So here we're looking at our front derailleur. We have our derailleur cable coming in from the top. So this would be considered a top pull derailleur. Nowadays, the derailleurs are able to take care of a top pull or a bottom pull, meaning your cable, instead of running your cable from your top tube and coming down here, it's coming from underneath the bottom of the bike and then coming up from the bottom and then attaching. But that doesn't matter. This is a little over exaggerated, but an example of a really loose cable, lots of slack in there. So with this, what happens is when you go to hit your front shifter to upshift, watch that cable. That's one click, so that chain should have moved. Or at least the derailleur cage should have moved, allowing that chain to go from the smallest ring to the biggest ring. So there's still lots of slack here, so too much slack could prevent that derailleur cage from moving. I'm going to go ahead and shift one more time. Technically this should take us to the third gear, which should be the biggest chainring. That click right there should have took us up. Now the derailleur cable is nice and tight, but our derailleur itself has not moved because there was way too much slack. And we ran out of gears. There's no more gears. We went all the way to the third gear. So we need to take that slack out. I'm going to go ahead and downshift. Right there, and we got all that slack back. So we want to take that slack out. We're going to take that slack out by grabbing the end of our cable here. Got some fingertips on it. Put some pressure on it. You want to keep pulling down at all times. And then we're going to open this up. And as soon as we find that, take enough pressure off, cable's going to pull tight. Keep pressure. Go ahead and tighten up that pinch bolt again. And now we have a little bit of movement. This is about normal right there. Got all that slack out. So now when we go shift, so I'm going to just show you without pedaling. We're going to do one upshift, one click at the shifter right off the bat. So we got movement out of that derailleur. One click got us one gear change and then back down. So we're back down at number one in the smallest ring. I'm going to go ahead and pedal. And one click upshift, one gear change. Now it's in the middle chainring. Do another upshift gear change. And that takes us to the last, number 3, which is our biggest ring right there. And everything should come on back down. Right now we have very tight pressure, and it should be super tight at this point because we have the full extension of that derailleur cage. When we go to relax it, we downshift one gear. Now the chain's back in the middle gear. Still got some tension on it, and we're going to go downshift to the last gear, which is number 1, smallest chainring. Back down there, and here we should have just a little bit of movement there. So got a little bit of slack, which is normal. That's totally normal. Second problem we could have is that someone may have touched one of your limit screws. You want to locate your limit screws, usually located with an H or an L. H for high limit screw. High limit screw is going to affect the chain when it's up in the biggest ring here. Low limit screw will affect your chain when it's down in the smallest chain ring over on the inside. So here we're taking a look from the very top point of view, coming straight down. The limit screws are here. So your limit screws may be in a slightly different spot, but there should be some lettering on it. There should be an L for low limit screw and it should be an H for high limit screw. You have to look very closely because sometimes it's printed in the plastic and it blends in with everything and it's very hard to see. So we got to get a real good close-up shot, get a toothbrush, clean off any dust, get a flashlight if you need to. Now if your limit screws are not marked in any way, you don't see an L or an H, try and look on the side of the derailleur or even behind it or underneath it. We're going to see where those screws end. We want to see where the end of the screw is making contact or not making contact. That's going to help us figure out which is the high and which is the low. So here we have a limit screw on the bottom and a limit screw on top. So if we try and look on the underneath and see where this screw is ending, it's going to be right under here. And there's space there. It is not touching anything. So if we look up a little higher, the end of the top screw is actually touching metal. So being that the chain is in the smallest ring and this screw is touching, that's telling me that this is my low limit screw. Therefore the chain's not coming off and hitting the frame. So we're gonna go ahead and upshift to our last gear, our biggest chainring here. So now that we did that, the whole derailleur is shifted. So if I look at this screw, find the bottom of the screw, see where it's touching, right down here, it's actually making contact with the derailleur. So this screw is actually stopping movement or pivot of this derailleur. So it's stopping the chain from coming off of this big ring. So I just established this is my high limit screw because this is my high speed gear, and this is my low limit screw for my smaller inside chainring. That's usually my climbing gear, where it's a little bit easier to pedal. So what may have happened is somebody may have tightened this limit screw all the way down clockwise, righty-tighty, all the way down. So what that's going to do is, since we push that screw down deep, it's going to stop, it's going to hit a part of the mechanism on the derailleur on the bottom side, which is going to stop its movement too soon, not allowing the chain to go up into the next gear. So we're going to see what that did. The screw's all the way down. Now I'm going to upshift one gear, and I got one click at the shifter, which got me one gear change. I'm in the middle ring. Let's go to the next one, see what happens. I'm going to try and go to the biggest ring here. So it doesn't want to make it up. It made some noise. It pushed the chain. All it did was push the chain to hit the other side of this chainring, but it didn't catch and grab it. It did not want to get on top of this chainring. So that's what that limit screw does. It's limiting the movement of this derailleur cage, which is all this silver portion here. It's stopping movement, which means it cannot towel this chain or push this chain over, and so it can go up onto the next ring. So to fix that problem, we're going to find our high limit screw. We're going to unloosen that, maybe a full turn for now, and we're going to see if we can get more full movement. We want to get up to this big chainring. Going to shift, trying to get a click out of the shifter. So the chain had hesitated, finally got up, and then when I released the lever, it dropped back down because it's still pretty tight. I don't have enough room here. It didn't allow me to get that last click in the shifter. Once I get that click, it's going to lock the shifter in place, which is going to lock your derailleur cage in place, making this chain stay in place. But since that didn't happen, everything went back to number 2 and the chainring. So we need to unloosen this just a bit more. We're going to do maybe a half turn of unloosening, lefty-loosey. And we're going to try again. Trying to get a click out of that shifter. So I got that click and also got the derailleur cage to move over, which pushed the chain over and finally climbed up on top of that big chainring. So that actually helped a lot. And if we loosen this way too much, this derailleur cage will actually push this chain off the gears, and then eventually it'll hit your crank arm right here. So if we're not careful, we could maybe scratch up some components. So those are the two possibilities that could stop your front derailleur from wanting to shift from your smallest ring up to the biggest. Either a little too much slack in that front derailleur cable for whatever reason, we're not sure. And also that high limit screw could be turned down way too far. So once you put it down too far, you're limiting movement of that derailleur cage, not allowing the chain to go upshift. So you got to back it out a bit. That way you're making space so that derailleur cage can move, allowing to push that chain up into that next biggest gear, and then so on. So there's definitely a lot more things that could be going on. So if you got any more issues or things you want me to check out, diagnosing your problems, I'd be happy to do that. Just leave a message, comment, subscribe. That'd be awesome. And let me know what else you need, and we'll go from there.